I've always been very self-conscious about my teeth, about my skin, about my ears. I literally started floating and I was lifted up in the air by this metal bar. Deep down, you kind of still feel like that insecure little child. I could never kill myself because I'm literally scared of needles, so I couldn't really do much. I'm Simone, I'm Italian. I've been living in Barcelona for the past 15 years. I was born in Naples and raised in a very tiny village of 5,000 people. I was a very quiet child. I was very shy, which made other kids kind of like freak out. I don't know. I guess I wasn't into football and I wasn't into fighting and I wasn't into girls mostly. I kind of looked like an alien to them. They looked at me like I was weird, like I was strange. So yeah, I was bullied as a child, kind of intensely. I lived in a very tiny village. It was very, very tiny, and it was kind of old school, as in there was a train that would pass through the town every, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, and it would literally pass through the town. So there were these metal bars that would be lowered so that cars and people would stop, and they wouldn't cross the railways while the train would pass. And my medium school, I don't really know what you call it in English, but my medium school was like 20 meters away from these railways. So at like 2 p.m. we left school and the whole fucking school was waiting for the train to pass. And I don't know how, somehow, either my backpack or my scarf, I hope it was my backpack, got tangled up in these metal bars. And when the metal bars started lifting, I literally started floating and I was lifted up in the air by this metal bar, and the whole fucking school was looking and pointing and laughing. And I was up there like, the only thing that occurred to me was waving, which made everything even funnier, and it gave them even more food for uh, bullying me. Which, I mean, I understand. I would have done the same probably. But yeah, that was so fucking embarrassing. I hated it. Now I find it funny, but at the time I really wanted to disappear. They lowered the bar. I untangled whatever it was. I mean, if it was my scarf, I probably would have choked to death. So it was probably my backpack. Um, I untangled everything and I just went back home and I kind of blocked it out. I couldn't hide. I had to go back to school the next day. So there wasn't really much um, processing to do. It was just like, okay, it happened. People laughed at you. Move on. They're probably gonna laugh at something else tomorrow. I never asked my family to move me to another school because first of all, it wasn't gonna happen because it was a very tiny village and there wasn't more than one school. So that was the only option I had. My mother came to school one day to speak to my teachers and to actually speak to the rest of the class to tell them that bullying was wrong and that blah, 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 which only made me more embarrassed about it. And obviously, she had the greatest intentions, and she did it out of pure love. But I didn't appreciate it at the time. I remember thinking, stay out of it. But I understand why she did it. I understand why mothers do it. And but yeah, that she's always been extremely supportive, and other people in my family as well. Until then, I grew a bit older, and I thought when I changed schools and I went to high school, I thought this is not going to happen again. I'm going to take control of this. So it stopped, luckily, because it wasn't very nice. And even though you kind of take control of it, it stays with you even when you're older. You still feel like deep down, you kind of still feel like that insecure little child that was told, why don't you like girls? Why don't you like football? Or whatever, and slurs. I became more open. I became more. I kind of started discovering my sense of humor, and the way that I approached people changed as well. So that also made me more popular, if you know what I mean, at high school. So that helped. It was a mixture of things. Like I told myself this is not going to happen again. But at the same time, it was also my change in personality, which helped a lot. I never dreamed of being popular. I actually don't really like attention. I feel extremely nervous in front of cameras, and I feel very self-conscious about the way that I look. Just in general, when people pay attention to me or they listening to me, I feel like the pressure that I have to be funny or I have to say something smart or So no, I didn't want to be popular. It happened kind of naturally, also because it was a school mostly filled with girls. There weren't so many guys. So I guess out of 20 guys, some people paid more attention to me than some others, and I actually had girls coming on, like knocking on the door of my classroom and going like, "Can Simone get out? I would like to meet him." And I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And so I would go out, and they would just like kind of ask me out, or like, "I really wanted to meet you," and I was like, "Why? I'm really not that interesting. Believe me, I'm boring." I lived this popularity, it's high school popularity, which is extremely shallow, it's extremely superficial, and it means absolutely nothing. But I was very calm about it. I didn't really care. But it was definitely better than being bullied, obviously. I always had a great relationship with my family, especially with my mother and my sisters. When I was 22 years old, my father passed away. He had a lung cancer, it extended to the brain, and it was very fast. Up until that moment, I was pretty much a child. I was 22, but I didn't really consider myself an adult. But we found out in August, and by December, he was gone. Suddenly, we had this thing at home, this situation at home where this man who had always been the breadwinner and the emotionless part of the family was sick. So he needed us constantly. And he passed away on December 30th, 2006. And I immediately threw myself into taking care of my mother. Like, I was worried for her well-being, not mine. So instantly I started taking care of her, making sure that she was fine. Literally the moment that my father took the last breath in our living room, I went to the sofa to see my mom. Like, how are you? Are you okay? What's going on? How do you feel? So by throwing myself into taking care of my mother, I didn't allow myself to process any of it. I was 22, and it took a couple of years for all this shit to come out in other ways. One day in summer, a couple of years later, I started feeling a bit sick, and I kind of vomited this bowl of blood and snot on the floor, and I started convincing myself that I had the same disease as my father, that I was dying, that I had brain cancer, that it was a matter of time. And from then on, it was a descent into I spiraled completely out of control. It was the worst 3-4 years of my life, and I hope I never go there again. I started feeling lightheaded, dizzy. My left arm would feel numb. I started feeling like my right leg wouldn't respond anymore. I was absolutely convinced that I was dying. Every single night I would go to bed and I would hug my boyfriend and say, "I'm not gonna wake up tomorrow morning. This is over. I'm dying." So I got this tattoo, which means death in Japanese. I mean, it could mean anything really. It could mean dickhead, or it could mean fried chicken. It doesn't. It actually really means death. I checked it. I made sure. I got it because at the time I thought it's the only thing, the only thing that's certain in this life is death, and the only thing that will stay with me forever until I die, it's this tattoo, unless I lose my arm, which is always an option. I hope it doesn't happen. So I had all this reasoning behind it. At least it made sense. Do I regret it? I don't regret it. I mean, no one knows what it means. But yeah, it could have been a bit of a more positive message. It's okay. I will get life at some point here. I actually many times contemplated not so much suicide, but I wished that I was dead. I could never kill myself because I'm literally scared of needles, so I couldn't really do much. But I was really hoping that it would stop, that I wouldn't wake up the next day because it was exhausting. I couldn't get out of bed. I was constantly dizzy. I remember something as stupid as I was watching The Simpsons. I was watching an episode of The Simpsons, and there was an episode where Marge was sitting on a chair, and I remember thinking, I can't even sit on a fucking chair without feeling dizzy. I started losing a lot of weight. I lost so much weight. I was probably 20 kilos less than I am now. I looked extremely skinny. People didn't make a secret that they noticed. So I was extremely insecure, extremely self-conscious. It was the summer and I was wearing short sleeve t-shirts, but on top I would wear shirts so that they would cover my very skinny arms. I felt ugly. I looked sick, pale. I was sick. The previous day I was sick. I vomited like 8 times and I went to hospital and I spent the night in hospital, which obviously didn't contribute to the way that I looked. It made me look even worse, even paler, even more with darker circles around my eyes, even skinnier. And then the next night, or 2 nights later, I don't remember, we went to a dinner and there was this sort of comedian. There was nothing funny about this person, but for some reason he considered himself a comedian. So there was this very big table of people. And it was me, my family, some family friends, my partner at the time. And out of all these people, this comedian pointed me out and he literally pointed at me and told me that I looked like Dracula or something like that. And if that happened now, I wouldn't give a shit because I'm in a complete different place mentally. But it happened at the time and I felt horrible about myself. It made me feel extremely insecure. It made me feel extremely self-conscious and exposed. Like now everybody's looking at me and everybody can see just how awful I'm looking. And I really feel like we should take more care of people's mental health. We don't know what people are going through. We don't know what people are feeling. Don't comment on people's appearance. Don't make stupid, light-hearted, superficial comments about you're too skinny, you're too fat, or you look fatter, or you look skinnier, or you look pale. Why don't you go to the beach? It's none of your fucking business. So don't. Even if you're trying to be funny, actually that's even worse because you're gonna make everybody pay attention to this. I've always been very self-conscious about my teeth, about my skin, about my ears, about my weight, about the fact that it's harder for me to put on muscles. People don't notice until you make them notice, until you bring attention to these flaws. I mean, they're flaws by societal standards, but they're not really flaws. It's just who you are. So that was another point where I felt like, right, so I'm really looking like fucking shit. Um, it is what it is. When this whole thing started about me losing weight and feeling like I was gonna die any moment, basically like I had this cancer and it was expanding everywhere and it was a matter of time, I started dealing with some phenomena that I didn't recognize, that I didn't know what they were because nobody ever really talked to me about them until I actually started going through them. Dizziness and constantly feeling sleepy and not wanting to get out of bed, not really caring about anything other than staying in bed and not doing much else. I started realizing that maybe I was depressed, that it was depression and that it was getting worse and worse. And I started also dealing with panic attacks. And I was very lucky because I lived with a person at the time who is nowadays my best friend, who really never judged me for my attitude at the time. I had these panic attacks where I would literally just throw things around and go fucking crazy because I had no idea what was happening to me or to my body or to my brain, and I couldn't control it, and it frustrated me. So I would have these episodes that were almost manic. And this person always helped me, always took me outside on the balcony, like, calm down, breathe, it's gonna get better, it's gonna go away. And that's when I understood that I was suffering from panic attacks and depression, and it went on for a very long time. I went to therapy. I couldn't really afford it at the time, so I didn't go for too long. I tried taking some medication. I didn't like it. I found myself in a mood that I couldn't recognize, so I stopped basically immediately. At the time, I was living in Italy, and then I moved to Barcelona, and I started dealing with it in a pretty unhealthy way. Like, I'm gonna complain about it every day because I can't get out of bed and I can't look at someone without feeling dizzy. I can't work. I was completely unable to work at the time. I hadn't worked for a very long time. I didn't want to work. I was kind of scared of finding myself in an environment where I had to pretend that I was doing well. I wasn't doing well. But it's very, very strange because I never considered the idea of moving to Spain, to Barcelona in general. Um, but then, like, I was kind of forced to move here because I chose to be with somebody who was from here. And now I feel like I'm stuck here and I really don't mind it. It's been 15 years and I love it. I feel at home. It's my home and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now, as of right now. But I would probably end up being an old man on the French Riviera there, looking orange, with hangy skin, gold everywhere, you know, and a drink, always a drink in my hand. And then I started dealing with it, but going out partying as much as I could, 3, 4 times a week, which also contributed to my weight loss. So I would go out partying, I would drink, I had a semi-open relationship with my partner at the time. So we just had a lot of occasional sex with a lot of strangers, which was fun. I'm not gonna deny it. It was fun, but it wasn't giving me absolutely anything. And it surely wasn't solving any of the issues that I had, which was I had not processed my father's death. I had not allowed myself to look after myself instead of looking after my mother. My mother at the same time was getting sick. Through this process, I was also dealing with my mother's disease, which was a sort of Alzheimer's. It wasn't really Alzheimer's. It was something a bit different. To be honest, I never really understood what it was. But she wasn't really there anymore. She kind of became a shell of who she used to be. And there was one episode where I felt extremely sad because I went to see my family in Naples. I was already living here and I went back to Italy. And my mother was in a retirement home. And she used to love Viva Forever by the Spice Girls. It's a song. It was her favorite Spice Girls song. And it's my favorite Spice Girls song as well. So I went and I was just trying to have a conversation with her, but she wasn't really there anymore mentally. She had even forgot that she had an addiction to cigarettes, so she wasn't smoking anymore. But I pulled out my phone and I started playing Viva Forever to her, and she actually started singing along, and I saw her, like she was still there somewhere. There's still a lot of pain inside me. That was probably the hardest moment. Because I knew that she was there somewhere, and I kind of wanted to pull her out, but it wasn't possible. And she died in 2015. Luckily, she died when I was already recovering, because otherwise that would have probably killed me. This whole thing was getting so out of control that I thought this needs to change. Therapy is not working. The pills are not working. At home, clearly, I'm not healing and I'm not working at the same time, so I don't have any type of distraction. So what me and my partner at the time thought was, let's go for a trip. Let's just go to London for a week, for 5 days, I don't remember, and let's try to enjoy it. Let's try to discover the city. We got to London. I was dealing with my symptoms, my dizziness, and my life. I was lightheaded and I was tired and I wanted to sleep, blah, blah, blah. But one day we were walking through Hyde Park. It was my first time in Hyde Park. I'm actually not even sure if it was Hyde Park at this point or if it was St. James Park or Green Park. It doesn't really matter. It was a fucking London park. And it was getting dark. It was like 5 p.m. and in London at 5 p.m. it's basically nighttime. And I was walking through this park and I remember thinking, you're dizzy, you're dizzy, you're dizzy, you're dizzy. But I also remember telling myself, you know what, doesn't matter at this point. You're in London. You've been dreaming of coming to London and enjoying the city. You're having a fucking walk through this London park. Fucking focus on where you are right now, what you're doing right now, and try to enjoy the moment. And that was the very first little brick in that I put into healing, that I started getting better. This kind of thing doesn't go away, you know. Depression, anxiety, panic attack, they don't really go away. You just learn to control them and to live with them. And that was how I started. It was very helpful. I started taking control of my brain and my body again. Very slowly, I started eating more. I started exercising. I quit smoking, which immediately made me balloon. I gained like 10 kilos in 1 year, which made me very happy. And then from then on, it was an uphill battle, but at least it was rewarding because I could see that I was getting better and better. And then I found a job, which was, it kind of saved my life because I started meeting new people. I started seeing people that were more similar to me, that had my sense of humor and that came from pretty much the same background as me. And I was busy. Most importantly, I kept myself busy. So I had a purpose. I had to get out of bed in the morning, whether I wanted it or not. So that really helped. And it's a journey that I'm still on and that I will always be on. But I could say that I'm doing well now. I'm doing quite well. Can I just show you where I get down on my knees and pray? This is it. I get down on my knees and pray to her. I pray to Lady Gaga and Lady Gaga only. And there's Gaga here, there's Gaga there, there's Gaga here, there's Gaga here, there's Gaga here, there's Gaga somewhere else there. Do I look obsessed? I'm not, I swear. I do feel pretty good about myself, my appearance these days. There are days where I feel like I don't even want to look at myself in the mirror, and there are days where I feel like, I do ya. But it really it depends on the mood, on the light, or how healthy I've been that week. You know, if I've been feeling a bit low or a bit sick or whatever, then obviously I end up looking worse. It's natural. The weather affects me a lot as well. The dark circles around my eyes get darker when the weather is cloudy. So it depends. Generally, I like the way I like the way I look. I think I look pretty okay-ish. No, don't follow me. I'm hiding.